It's been 3 years since our former Governor Andrew Cuomo signed an executive order to admit over 9,000 COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. Many of you know about my advocacy in trying to shine a light on that deadly mandate to find out why it was put in place for 46 days and why families were never notified of this while all of us were in lockdown and told to stay as far away from the COVID-19 virus as possible. To this day, we still don't know why our government decided to flood the most vulnerable in the places that they were supposed to be kept safe. On today's podcast, I wanted to talk to one of the most vocal lawmakers in New York City about this tragedy. The Honorable Ron Kim is the chair for the Committee on Aging and has led the charge in trying to save lives and bring change to our nursing homes and elderly care in general as the head of the Aging Committee. A couple of weeks ago, I joined Ron in Albany with other grieving families for hearings on reviewing and examining the state of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. And even though it seems like the rest of the world has moved on, Ron, Kim, and I are never giving up our quest for answers and accountability. It's not a Republican or a Democratic issue. It's about right or wrong. And I'm grateful for his friendship and for coming in today to help shine a light. Ron Kim, you made the Dean's List.
I love it. Yeah, the Dean's List. Yeah.
You were a smart kid in school, though, right?
Despite the stereotype of...
What do you mean this? Okay.
Of Asian Americans.
All right. Well, you're supposed to be a smart dude.
But I wasn't the sharpest pencil.
Come on.
My dad, growing up, he was more concerned about me scoring touchdowns on the football field and bringing home an A+ paper, which is very, very different than a typical tiger Asian parent.
Right.
So I had a unique upbringing. My dad was really into sports. Like the moment I could walk, he put me on roller skates, developed my leg strength.
Really?
He was really into it. Yeah.
Roller skates.
Because we didn't have rollerblades back then. It was roller skates.
Yeah, of course, I remember.
Yeah, but his thinking was, all right, we gotta get an advantage.
How old were you?
I was I remember I must have been 3 or 4. And I never stayed home because I was just conditioned to be outside, be active, on a bike, always bruised up, and I wouldn't come home until my mom would have supper and yell come back in.
Right.
That's how every kid should grow up.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I was just talking about that about Matthew and Theodore, my kids.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that they're meeting at the schoolyard, meeting at the park. Every weekend they go out, they play touch football. Thank goodness, right?
Yeah. But even when I came here as an immigrant to Flushing and Queens. Flushing is a very congested immigrant town. I still remember when I came here, and I was on the sidewalk playing stickball and just being always active as a kid.
Yeah.
Even living in an apartment, I just never stayed in the apartment. We were always outside doing something. But now I just feel so bad for the young kids. And I was with the family vacation on a cruise that was delayed, and I remember eating at this restaurant, and every kid on this table had an iPad.
Oh, iPad.
We're on a cruise. They're on a cruise family, but they're just so conditioned, and the iPad and the phones are normalized. They just can't get off of it, even when we're on a vacation.
Oh, my gosh. And you know what? The parents are to blame for that, too. You know what I mean? Because, listen, when the kids were younger and we needed some quiet time in the back seat, I get it. It's a great device for that, so you can think while you're driving.
Yeah.
But you're right. When we're on vacation, that needs to go away.
Yeah. Yeah, just really just be in the moment. And just capture everything in, be osmosis. And I just don't think that our kids growing up have the same experiences that we all did.
Yeah.
Like the memories and the images that we had growing up. I just don't, and they just get so much information every single second.
That's scary too.
And how do you consume all that?
I don't know. And we don't know what the results are going to be, right?
Yeah.
So when did you come to the United States?
I was 7 years old. It was 1987. And it was right after when the Mets had won the World Series. And we were in Flushing, New York. We could see Shea Stadium, from where we moved. And that's why I'm an eternal Mets fan. And it was a great time. My parents were immigrants. They were small business owners. They gave up everything they had to come here and pursue a better life, really, for me. My dad was a relatively successful electrical engineer. He worked in the Middle East on all these construction projects. He traveled. He was a company man. He had an apartment in South Korea. Like, he had real estate, but he gave it all up because he thought, in that country, in South Korea at that time, I was limited. My child was limited in what he could dream of doing when he grew up.
Yeah.
And secondly, he just thought that America had a bigger heart. I don't know how to articulate that.
That's a great way to articulate it.
In direct, language, in Korean language, but that's the best way to translate that. Like, something about American spirit, that they're generous. Like, they see the world with a big heart and not closed-minded. Because when you live in a country like South Korea, it's hyper-competitive. Everyone lives on top of each other. You can't be happy for your neighbor's son when they get into a good school. Just be authentically happy for each other as neighbors. But he thought that coming here, we'll have a bigger heart, and I can have a bigger dream and aspiration to be a happier person growing up.
Wow. So, and your uncle was the one that helped get your family here.
Yeah, my uncle came here first with my grandmother. My uncle was in the U.S., was in the Korean military, came here, went to dental school, became one of the first dentists of Korean descent in New York, and opened up a shop later on. But before he opened up his office, he joined the U.S. Army after going to dental school because he wanted to practice right away. And as an immigrant, it was hard to kind of integrate and get an office, professional office, even if you have a dentistry degree. So he got experience right away in the military, and then ended up becoming a captain in the U.S. Army because of his skill set. So he was an officer, and through the Army network, he was able to sponsor us and his extended family to come here to this country.
Wow. And that was in the 80s.
It was in the 80s. Yeah, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have my name. He named me after Ronald Reagan because he was like also one of probably the only Republicans of Korean descent at that time. So he was just a big fan. I mean, he wasn't. I don't know if he was a fan of, if it was a true Republican or he was just a fan of Ronald Reagan.
I think some people. I don't even really think of Ronald Reagan as having Republican or Democrat. I just think of him as Ronald Reagan. He was an actor, obviously, but he was a larger than life figure, I think.
Yeah, I think for a person like my uncle, it just gave him that kind of grand gesture. He was a Ronald Reagan for him. Looking back, I don't agree with a lot of the policies of the Reagan era, but I think the figure himself gave people like my uncle a lot of hope that we could dream bigger here.
Did you see yourself as following in the footsteps of political life? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, my dad, like I said before, he came here, gave up everything, and opened up a mom and pop grocery store. Typical Koreans, in the 80s, opened up a grocery store in Upper Manhattan. And despite being a Korean grocer, every other corner, every block, they just thought that, all right, well, if we just wake up a little earlier and work a little harder and not take any vacations, we can make ends meet. They just work super hard. And I saw that growing up, but 10 years later, I saw them file for bankruptcy. Because the landlord at the time raised the rent like by 350% overnight. Ugh. And they try to oust the tenants to bring in like more chain store type of businesses. Mm-hmm. So they were bullying and targeting and directing city agencies to fine my dad's business. And I saw that at a young age. And no one was sticking up for the smaller guys. Mm.